Welcome back to another episode of 40 Facts About the 40k Universe. I am your host Gershwin and you were watching One Mind Syndicate. Today we continue talking about the warp as we get into the non-chaos warp entities. So all of the entities that belong in the Immaterium or are from the Immaterium but do not fall under the four chaos gods. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. We post Warhammer 40k lore videos every single day. If you have any suggestions for any other topics of Warhammer 40k, please comment down below. And if you enjoy our content, thank our patrons on Patreon. It's because of them that we can do this. Link in the description if you guys want to support us. But with that said, let's get into 40 facts on the warp entities. The realm of pure psychic energy that is naturally hostile to all forms of organic life from real space. The warp is home to its own unique forms of life. Many of these creatures are not sentient, but depend on the absorption of psychic energies to survive, and are thus naturally drawn to the psychic emanations of mortals in real space, whose psyches are the very wellspring of the Immaterium. These entities inhabit the formless wastes, also known as the chaotic abyss or the land of lost souls. These are regions of the Immaterium that do not fall under the domain of one of the four major chaos gods. Much of its landscape is simply pure chaos, forming and reforming constantly based on the psychic currents rolling in the minds of the sentient mortals of the Milky Way galaxy, as well as the psychic currents of the realm of chaos. This is a place where the laws of physics hold no sway. Within the formless wastes sit rivers of tar that flow through petrified woodlands beneath crimson skies. Great stairways ascend into the heavens, where they connect back onto themselves in an endless loop. These celestial stairways sit alongside the castles crafted from bone and fortresses of ichor, while pillars of fire burn on the horizon. Every dream, nightmare, and vision ever had by any of the sentient species of the galaxy has a representation within the formless wastes. This is the home of all the non-chaotic warp entities. A Fury is a winged gargoyle-like demonic beast of chaos undivided that inhabits the formless wastes of the Immaterium. They can be summoned in the same nature as other chaos demons. Somewhat larger than a man, with a hunched posture, Furies are hideous winged demonic creatures. They have bestial, long-jawed faces and mouths full of jutting teeth and fangs. A bristly mane of black hair runs from their short horn to the base of their spine, while two broad bat wings sprout from their shoulders. Their coloration vary with the flow of the warp or the demonic powers currently ascendant, but black and red tones seem to be most common. It is said amongst the imperial savants of the Inquisition, particularly versed in the dark secrets of demonology, that Furies are created from the souls of those humans and other sentient beings who selfishly serve chaos for their own personal gain, rather than devoting themselves heart and soul to a single chaos god. When they finally fall or die in battle, no chaos god will claim them, and their tragic fate means that they can never enter any of the ruinous powers' personal kingdoms within the realm of chaos. They are doomed to spend eternity in the grotesque gargoyle-like state, drifting like a leaf through the chaotic ocean of the Immaterium. Such is the punishment for indecisiveness and selfishness amongst the dark gods. The only respite for this fate for a Fury are the rare demonic incursions into real space, which allow them to vent their wrath upon unfortunate mortals. Because they serve no patron chaos god, Furies rank very low in the demonic hierarchy of chaos. Their leathery bat-like wings allow them to strike swiftly and from above, which gives them an advantage over many more powerful lesser demons and demonic beasts, and make them an asset for any demonic force. When on the hunt, Furies keep to the air, looking to ambush their target by attacking from above. Cowardly by nature due to their status at the bottom of the demonic hierarchy, Furies prefer to hunt those who venture alone, are wounded or injured, or otherwise look to be unable to fully defend themselves. As Furies constantly seek release from their eternal torment, they are especially watchful of weaknesses in the wall between the worlds. Thus, Furies are often one of the first demons to appear near an open warp gate, or when Geller fields begin to flicker and fail. When they appear in real space, Furies are quick to find mortals to vent their rage upon. Gathering in large packs, they slaughter all they can find in a vain attempt to appease their inner hunger for a sense of purpose amid the rolling and uncaring waves of the warp. While individual furies can be defeated by a man who holds to his faith in the Emperor and stands his ground, furies found in the service of a greater demon are a different matter. Driven by a combination of fear and awe, these furies attack with enthusiastic viciousness, looking to gain favor in the eye of their demonic better. It is also rumored that in these cases they often have a purpose beyond simple death and destruction, and may even seek to capture specific individuals or items in order to present them to their demonic commanders. Mortal servants of chaos have been known to attempt to summon and enslave furies. Their great mobility, horrific appearance, and relatively weakness make them a popular summoning choice for heretical worshippers seeking power. Various cults in the Corynus Expanse are known to have used furies for a variety of purposes, the most common being simply sending the demons out to cause death and destruction, be that on a planet or inside a vessel. On rare occasions, a pack of furies will become trapped in real space, cut off from the warp and the terrible realm which sustains their existence. Usually in such cases, the creatures will simply fade, screaming into nothingness. When caught outside the warp, in the strange currents of the screaming vortex, something entirely inexplicable happens. In these rare cases, the pack of demons slowly begin to wither, their warp-infused bodies losing vitality, yet they still live on, tormented by their separation from the warp, but unable to simply vanish from existence. The only means by which the swarm of gargoyle-like beings may remain in existence is by feasting on the misery, pain, and torment of mortal souls. As such, these swarms of creatures from the nether seek out groups of living beings in desperate attacks. In combat, these creatures are frenzied, driven mad by their metaphysical hunger, and without heed of their own safety. They swarm as one, seeming to possess a single mind, born of their desolation and consuming need to inflict agony. A blur of fang and claw, the swarm of warp spawn tear their victims to pieces, flaying flesh from the bone, and gorging themselves on the resulting fear and torment. Eventually these horrors will cease to exist, their forms devoured by the extortion of remaining in real space. Should this so-called nether swarm find a suitable locale to inhabit, where their consumption may continue unhindered, this dissolution may take years to come to pass, though it is inevitable, as no amount of pain and agony inflicted can ever fully restore their vile creatures to full existence. Astrospects are warp creatures formed from the psychic energy and the fabric of the immaterium, and created by the foolhardy actions of an untrained psyker. They feed off soul essence, requiring a constant supply of warp energy to survive. Spectres vary in appearance, but all retain the same basic form. Each is a vaguely humanoid figure, composed of semi-translucent shadows. They are uniformly vile and horrific to behold. Their mere presence unnerves nearly every creature. While the natural form of a spectre is unreal, they are unable to possess the bodies of intelligent beings. They feed off the souls of their host, leaving them as mindless husks, and absorbing some of their host's memories, which the specters can use to maintain a facade of normality. Astro Hounds are dark creatures native to the warp that resemble large shadowy dogs. These entities are noted for being extremely predatory and carnivorous beings, though they are ultimately not intelligent. Brute instinct guides them to track the psychic aura of their prey across the warp space. While capable of tracking any psychic being, these hounds find the minds of unprotected human psychers to be the strongest and most attractive prey. The scent from such a target is so strong that it creates compulsions for the Astro Hound and makes them the most dangerous threat to a psyker. They are equally ferocious combatants to face for those that encounter such creatures. During their hunts for prey, Astro Hounds can either hunt alone or be in packs of as many as 6 such creatures. Once it tracks its prey down, a hound uses the powers of its psychic prey to manifest into the material universe. These warp entities attack with a numbing bite that is capable of paralyzing their victims. Such unfortunate and helpless victims are then dragged into warp space, where the hounds begin to feed on their psychic energies. Within the material universe, those psychers that become prey to an Astro Hound simply disappear, and their absence confounds their friends as well as neighbors, who have no idea that the person has been taken into the warp. Another noted trait for such hounds is their capacity to make short jumps through the warp, allowing them to suddenly appear several meters beside or behind their enemies. Demons, also known as Neverborn, are entities of the warp, the servants of the Chaos Gods. They are created at the whim of a Chaos God, from a fraction of the god's own power, and act as an extension of their will. A demon's appearance and character reflects the god's own nature. These demons may be reabsorbed into the god at whim. Being an entity of the warp, a demon cannot exist for long periods of time in real space, any more than a mortal can survive unprotected in warp space. Demons can be fought in the physical sense, while in real space, but are rarely killed. More frequently, they are banished back into the warp to fester and brood until their next chance into real space. In order to enter real space in great numbers, demons need to use warp rifts. At times, a demon can possess a mortal and turn him into a portal through which whole hosts can pass. These demonic incursions can taint real space severely, often twisting and reshaping whole planets while they are lost and turned into demon worlds. In the ash plains outside the Forge of Souls in the Immaterium, demons battle each other for a chance of fusing with the mechanical constructs of the demonic smiths. Doing so will give the demon the abilities to sustain itself in real space almost indefinitely. These creatures are called soul grinders. The soul grinder is a demonic war machine used by the demons of chaos, said to originate from the Forge of Souls, appearing as a six-legged construct with a roughly humanoid upper body. These creatures act as battle tanks. The soul grinder is armed with a close combat weapon appropriate for its size, such as a warp sword and iron claw, as well as other weapons such as a rapid-firing harvester cannon and a deadly maul cannon. Before being released, each soul grinder must take the 3 oaths of the Iron Pact with the Masters of the Forge. The first, all the souls harvested by the greater blades of the soul grinder will be used for the fueling of the forge. Secondly, all the wrecked remains of all war machines destroyed by the adamantium claws of the soul grinder will be offered to the forged. And lastly, should any of the Chaos Gods attack the Forge of Souls and try to rule it, the soul grinder must discard all of its previous loyalties and fight in its defense. Such creatures include the vampire, also known as Vraikolaka or a Nosferatu. In ancient Terran lore, as well as in different regions of the galaxy, it is a member of an intelligent species of other dimensional entities that has the ability to appear to others in any form they choose. They become entrenched within the legends of Old Earth, and were later regarded as being discredited myths as well as legends. In reality, the vampires of legend were real beings who infiltrated many societies across the galaxy, where they masqueraded as chosen races and sought positions of power. They are polymorphic parasites preying upon the life force of their hosts. Vampires are able to radically alter their metabolism in order to resemble the creature amongst whom they dwell. Their natural shape, if such can be called, is a bat-like, although approximately human size. At some point in the 41st millennium, a warp-spawn vampire and its servants had risen to power on the Imperial Hive-world of Cephestian IV. The Black Templar chapter of Space Marines is known to have battled these creatures, with the future High Marshal Helmbrick slaying the entity, and through its act earning induction into the ranks of the Sword Brethren. Another warp entity is the Psyche Neuen. They are insectoid creatures that resemble huge, spiny wasps. They are drawn to the mental emanations of unprotected, badly injured, or new psychers, whose minds they attack for the obscene purpose of gestating their progeny. What makes this creature so dangerous is its reproductive cycle. The female Psyche Neuen is drawn to the psychic emanation in real space, and has a rudimentary fusion of telepathic and telekinetic powers. When fertile, the female psychically projects a clutch of its eggs into the brain of a psychically active host, with the unprotected mind, vulnerable to the powers of the ether. The eggs are small, no larger than a grain of sand, but by morning the following day, they will hatch and begin to feed on the host's brain. At first, the victim feels nothing more than a mild headache. By the afternoon, he will be in agony, raving and insane, as his brain is devoured from the inside out. By nightfall, he will be dead, his skull a withering mass of plumbed maggots. Once infected by a Psyche Neuen, a psyker slowly loses intelligence, and his or her appearance slowly changes until they are either killed by the emerging Psyche Neuen larva, or their instability unleashes other psychic perils, such as insanity or even demonic possession. Psyche Neuen have three well-known phases of their life cycle: the larval phase, the adult phase, and the infected phase. Larval Psyche Neuen are typically puny creatures whose main strength is their ability to infect others. Injuries can trigger a sudden metamorphosis to its adult form. Their small size makes them easy to kill, but they usually occur in large numbers, making an infection of Psyche Neuen difficult to control, particularly if there are any latent psychers around for them to infect. Once in adult form, the Psyche Neuen are relatively easy to destroy, having no compulsion to hide. However, they are still dangerous because they are capable of breeding more of their kind within the minds of nearby unprotected psychers. Over short distances, up to 100 meters, all psychers are vulnerable whether protected or not. The adult Psyche Neuen is vividly colored in yellow and black. Its wings are transparent. Grubs are white and generally maggot-like in appearance, though Psyche Neuen of the Mara strain are said to resemble spiny grubs. The adult is 2.5 meters long. Grubs reach a maximum size of about half a meter before they pupate. Adult Psyche Neuen are much more dangerous than their larval brethren. They are stronger, faster, tougher, and more perceptive than humans, and capable of flight and detecting minds. A single adult Psyche Neuen is a significant threat to any and every nearby sentient being. Psyche Neuen have been known to have various distinct genres, of which 3 have been identified: the Maro strain, the Luctos strain, and the long-extinct Prospero strain. The Maro strain is deemed the most dangerous. The Maro strain was first identified by the Ordo Xenos Inquisitor, Ark Ashton, during a heavy infestation at the mining penitentiary on the ice world of Mara in the Calixix sector. Although the Mara facility was subsequently decommissioned, the tale of the ice station massacre remains a favored dark fable among the sector's spacefarers. Since then, confirmed incidences of Mara strain infection have occurred on the Calixis sector, in the worlds of Dusk and Pellucida 5, as well as several vessels transiting near Mara, although these incidences remain thankfully very few. The Luctos strain, identified in the 281st year of the 39th millennium by Brother Epistolary Arno Tanis of the Death Watch in the Jericho Reach, seems particularly resistant to extinction, having reappeared dozens of times after seemingly being annihilated. Tanis himself was slain by larval infections less than a day after making his report of a successful mission against them to the Watch Commander, forcing Watch Fortress Erico into lockdown until the creatures could be contained and purged. The second strain of Psyche Neuen, positively identified by the Ordo Xenos, is the long-extinct Prospero strain that resides on the now barren homeworld of the Thousand Suns Space Marine Legion. These creatures were also insectoid and utterly invisible to the human eye. Prospero's ancient city of Tisca was the last outpost of human civilization on the world, after its prior society had been wiped out thousands of standard years ago by the predation of the Psyche Neuen. Tisca was a city where the survivors of the planet-wide cataclysm found refuge from the assault of the Psyche Neuen. The Thousand Suns always suspected some freak upsurge in the warp that triggered an explosion of uncontrolled psychic potential within the Prosperian population, driving the Psyche Neuen into reproductive feeding frenzy. The civilization of Prospero collapsed, and the survivors fled to the city in the mountains. For thousands of Terran years, the people of Tisca endured, while all they had built in the millennium since leaving Terra fell to dust. The surface of Prospero was dotted with the remains of their dead culture. Empty cities were overgrown with forests and vines, and the palace of their kings overrun with wild beasts. The survivors survived by salvaging knowledge and equipment from the destruction to construct techno-psychic arrays and substantial energy sources, which then allowed them to build gigantic hydroponic gardens deep in the caverns of the ventral mountain ranges. They survived the Psychonian threat by further developing the very psychic powers that had made them so vulnerable. The Psyche Neuen were drawn to Tisca in their thousands, but the survivors were able to train their most gifted psychers to use their minds to erect invisible barriers of pure thought. Known as kinshields, they were primitive, bombastic powers compared to the subtle art later employed by the Thousand Suns, but they kept the creatures at bay. When Magnus came to Prospero, it was said that the great comet had borne him to the ground, for the impact he had on them was as great as the impact upon the planet's crust. The Tiscan Commune, which was the name the survivors of the Psyche Neuen assault on Prospero gave to their little enclave, was a place rooted in tradition, but they had some skill in wielding the powers of the ether. The young Primarch was schooled in the ways of the commune, and he quickly learned everything they had to teach. In truth, Magnus had outstripped the learnings of their greatest scholars within a standard year of his arrival. The teachings were so dogmatic, too linear, and too limited for the potential of a Primarch's mind. His intellect was superior in every way to those that taught him. With his teachings, he knew they could be so much more. To increase his understanding of his powerful psychic abilities, Magnus took a walk into the desolation of Prospero. True power came only to those who have fully tested themselves against their greatest fears. Within the commune, the Primarch knew no fear, no hunger or want, and had no drive to push his abilities to their full potential. Magnus needed to be tested to the very limits of his power to see if he had any limits. A year after his coming to Prospero, the Primarch walked from the gates of Tisca and marched into the wilderness for nearly 40 days. Through this observation, Magnus learned to harvest his powers and abilities during his long trek. He also met Ammon, the future captain of the Ninth Fellowship. Despite their discoveries, as was the way of history, nothing of importance was ever achieved without bloodshed. Tragedy soon struck Tisca in the form of the return of the Psyche Neuen menace. Temporarily lax in their mental discipline, the Psyche Neuen were drawn to the large commune of psychers in Tisca in their thousands, blackening the sky with their numbers as they descended like a plague of ancient time. From there, they swarmed from their darkened caves, organically shifting clouds of deadly ether, the relentless buzzing of thousands of crystalline wings, representing the sound of inevitable doom. The male swarmed in, a hurricane of snapping mandibles and tearing claws, and 50 men died in the time it takes to draw your breath. Behind the males came the females, engorged with clutch upon clutch of immaterial eggs. Their furious reproductive hunger was insatiable, and dozens of the Primarch's friends fell to their knees in horror as they felt the Psyche Neuen eggs take root in their brain. The beasts swirled around them, battering the Prosperian with psychic thrust, scrambling at their mental barrier to seed their minds with their eggs, and only the strongest of men remained. Ammon and 8 of the masters of Tisca stood with the Primarch, and the Psyche Neuen attack came again. Magnus knew this was what he had been seeking all along, a true test of his abilities. He would finally discover whether he had limits. Magnus would see if he was the master of his powers, or was to be found wanting. As the Psyche Neuen came at the Prosperian defenders again, something magnificent happened. The Primarch felt something move within him, feeling change as though an immense power had lain within him, dormant and untapped, surged from his life. As Magnus contemplated the moment of his death, raging fire erupted from his hands. The Primarch hurled torrents of flame into the sky as though he had always known he had this power, and smothered hundreds of Psyche Neuen to ruin with every gesture. Soon the other Tisca masters displayed hence unknown abilities as well, as walls of flame sprang up from their command. Others were able to pluck beasts from the air and dash them on the rocks with the power of their minds. Still other defenders were able to will the vital fluids within the Psyche Neuen to boil within their exoskeletons. Ammon saw images of the future and imminent danger searing through his mind, and he cried words of warning to his fellows, telling them of dangers to come and how they might avoid them. Some of the other defenders sensed the lust within the Psyche Neuen to plant their psychic seeds within the humans' minds, the relentless animal hunger that drove them to feed and procreate. They reached into the minds of the beasts and twisted their perception so that they became blind to humans. With these newfound abilities, the later psychic cult of the Thousand Suns Legion was born. The threat of the Prospero strain of Psyche Neuen was forever after rendered inert. Psyche Neuen grubs are typically around a meter long and ooze a grayish mucus as they crawl. They are unsettling to behold, as if their motions are out of sync with the reality they are spawned into, and few beings can stomach their presence for long. Clutches of Psyche Neuen grubs are more inclined to hide in some dark corners, safe from aggressors. Making up the overwhelming majority of adult Psyche Neuen, drones resemble giant wasps, each 2 meters long from their mandible to the end of their thorax, capable of swift movement and extremely strong and resilient. Psyche Neuen are also innately psychic and venomous. Their stingers can pierce any armor worn by a demon or man, and in significant numbers, they can overwhelm even the mightiest of warriors. Within their confines of a space hulk, swarms of Psyche Neuen drones cluster in vast caverns and abandoned vaults, emerging to hunt periodically. Thankfully rare, it is postulated by the Magos biologists, scholars of the Death Watch, that the Psyche Neuen breeds that they have titled queens require special conditions to create. The special circumstance that are necessary for a grub to become a queen instead of a drone has never been replicated. Those rare few that have been encountered were sighted aboard Space Hawk Mortis Thal. These beasts are extremely dangerous, not only for their enormous size and ferocious manner, but also for their ability to spread their vile brood across the stars. Large, bloated, potentially psychic, and extremely strong and resilient, a Psyche Neuen queen is a deadly foe, the kind of creature that only the mightiest and most resilient warriors can hope to combat. And those were 40 facts on the warp entities. Now this is an older video. There is some information, not that it has changed, but it's just some information that I want to revisit and then make something along the lines of talking about the warp entities and the other things that go on within the warp that don't fall under the 4 major chaos gods, because there's been some questions in the Greater Wall episodes. I wanted to create this video, number one, to allow me to work on that other video, but also just to kind of brainstorm and kind of understand what those warp entities are and how they operate and what that means for the warp in general. So expect that video pretty soon. Thank you guys so much for commenting down in the comment section below. All your suggestions are great. And if you guys have any other questions, please comment down below. We're trying to answer questions in the comment section a little bit more than we usually do. But thanks for everything, guys, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. This was Gershwan with One Mind Syndicate signing out.
Always used to put my freedom